Welcome to ANON Streams by ANON Global Foundation, a new podcast featuring stories of change, growth, and sustainable livelihood. So, stay tuned, people.
Hello, stupendous, fantabulously, phantasmagorically magical people. How have you been? I am Ananya Batra, your host for the day, with yet another episode on an extensively researched topic, meditation. And in today's podcast, we will focus on mystical meditation. Without any further ado, with immense pleasure and honor, I would like to invite our eminent guest speaker for today, Dr. Heather Smith. Dr. Heather Smith is the founder of Mystical Meditation, based in London and California. Embracing the teachings of the infinite way, the work of the 20th century mystic Joel Goldsmith, Dr. Smith offers spiritual guidance and healing meditation. Thank you very much for being here with us today, Dr. Smith.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Pleasure here as well. Dr. Smith, mystical meditation. The name seems quite intriguing. What exactly is mystical meditation, and for how long have you been practicing it?
Well, mystical meditation is the name of the platform that I use to share Joel Goldsmith's teachings. Joel Goldsmith, as you said, was a 20th century American mystic. And I've been studying and sharing his teachings for about 30 years now. And I host spiritual talks and meditation groups in London and America under the auspices of mystical meditation.
Wow, that sounds pretty interesting. I'm inquisitive to learn more about it, and I'm sure the listeners are excited about this concept too. Thank you, Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith, moving on. There are literally hundreds of meditation techniques encompassing practices from different traditions, cultures, and spiritual disciplines. So, what sets mystical meditation apart from other types and practices of meditation?
Well, I'd say that the meditation techniques that I share are an avenue of awareness. So they're a means to an end rather than the end itself. And the purpose of the meditation that I share is to connect with our inner being, that one field of consciousness, and let that express itself through us as healing in our experience. So it doesn't involve any chanting or reciting any mantras or any fancy techniques at all. It's simply a way of stilling our thoughts, our mind, and being a transparency for the consciousness that we are to shine through us as our experience.
Great. All of us have better clarity on the same now. All thanks to you, Dr. Smith. And here's an interesting fact for all our listeners. Meditation or dhyana is the seventh limb of yoga. Moving to the next question. Dr. Smith, sometimes as we sit to meditate, our mind wanders or we often forget to follow our breath. The mind often resists being tamed by kicking up all sorts of excuses, restlessness, boredom, and doubt among them. What, according to you, Dr. Smith, are the practices through which we can establish a strong foundation for our practice and, more importantly, stick with it? What is the antidote, according to you?
Okay, yes. Well, Joel suggested that for those beginning on the spiritual path, very short periods of meditation throughout the day, and they really can be very brief periods of meditation, are sufficient. But sometimes when the mind is anxious or if one has got a problem, it can be difficult to just stop and meditate. So Joel suggests contemplating a spiritual truth before engaging in meditation. And that can be a truth from any scripture. And Joel quoted mainly from Christian scripture, but it can be a truth from any scripture. And contemplating that until the mind becomes still and receptive to the silence within you. And he also suggested that, for example, stopping at different points during the day and becoming aware of your inner self, your consciousness. So, for example, when you wake up in the morning, before you even get out of bed, just taking a moment to recognize what it was that brought you back into an awareness of the day, what brought you out of sleep, what gives you the sensation of the bed beneath you or the floor beneath you. And that, of course, is your consciousness. And then throughout the day, when you walk through a door, or when you sit down to eat a meal, or when you meet somebody, again remembering that it's the life force within you that's creating that experience. And then just taking a moment to consciously rest back and listen within to your inner self.
Absolutely, I second that. A great perspective indeed. It's more like meditation practice and not meditation perfect, to be put in simple words. Am I right in this, Dr. Smith?
Yeah, absolutely, I would agree. Meditation is very much a discipline. And I would say that one gradually evolves from brief periods of meditation throughout the day to then consciously living in awareness of our invisible self.
Perfect. Another question, Dr. Smith. How can the youth of today that wants everything fast and easy, and I'm one of them, and with all the technological distractions, connect with self? Where does one begin and how does one get started and stay consistent about the same?
Okay, well, I'd say one very simple and profound way that I can suggest is if, for example, when you're looking in the mirror, to become aware of what it is that's looking out through your eyes at your reflection. And you begin to see that invisible part of yourself, your consciousness, that's appearing to be looking out through your eyes. And when you practice this, you realize that invisible, expanded part of yourself is actually greater than the reflection, the image of your body, your human self that's being presented to you. And if you continue with this practice, you begin to realize that the whole picture of the world presented to you by your eyes isn't actually outside of you. It's within you. It's within your consciousness. So exploring this creates a whole new perspective on one's existence.
That sounds great. With consistent practice and a certain amount of open-mindedness and willingness to investigate, I'm sure the change it brings about is gradual, subtle, and intangible, yet profound. Thank you for the suggestion, Dr. Smith. We'll all take care of this. Dr. Smith, there's a statement I read while I was researching on the topic, and it is meditation isn't about letting your thoughts wander, but it isn't about trying to empty your mind. All this seems confusing to me. How do we do this?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree. It's not about trying to quell our thoughts or even trying to change our thoughts. As you said previously, it's deeper and a more subtle practice than that. The meditation that I share is about being aware of consciousness rather than focusing on thoughts, and then listening to that silence within you. The human mind always wants something to do. And so by disciplining the mind to listen within, you're giving the mind something to do. And then the thoughts in and of themselves stop automatically without any straining or any effort on your part.
Agreed. Meditation is not trying to turn off your thoughts or feelings, and it's more about learning to observe them without judgment. And eventually, one may start to better understand them as well. I'm sure your response has inspired many to meditate and discover themselves, and it's such a pleasure having this conversation with you today. But since we're running out of time, any parting words for all our listeners, Dr. Smith?
Yeah, I'd really love it if we could end with a very brief 1-minute meditation, just to be still for a few moments in any way that has meaning for you and our listeners. So if it's okay with you, I like to close my eyes when I meditate, but you don't have to. And I listen within. And when I do, I sometimes feel a tingling sensation. So if you or our listeners do too, that's completely natural. But again, it's not necessarily part of meditation. So shall we start? And I'll let you know when about a minute's over.
Perfect. Okay, all set.
Okay, I'll close my eyes now. Thank you very much. If you close your eyes, I invite you to open them now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith. I'm sure we all have got a lot to take back from this episode, and your expertise in the art of mystical meditation has left a positive impact on each and every one of us here, and has inspired and enlightened us towards this practice and to take individual initiative towards mystical meditation. Thank you for sharing your mastery with us, Dr. Smith. We look forward to our next interaction. Until we meet again, goodbye, Dr. Smith.
Goodbye, and thank you so much for inviting me here today. It's been a pleasure to share this discussion with you.
Goodbye to all our listeners as well. Thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for the next episode as well. This is me, Ananya Batra, signing off. Thank you. Stay home, stay safe.
Thank you so much for listening to ANON Streams by ANON Global Foundation. If you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen.